Oleg Baturin prepares to testify in an Odessa courtroom. Two pro-Russian collaborators are on trial, in absentia because they're still on Russian-held territory, for what they did to Oleg in March 2022, when he was kidnapped in his hometown in Kherson region.
They said we can send you to the shooting squad right here, right now. Then this Mr. Leontiev said, "No, that's too easy a death for you." And he started describing in detail how he would skin me alive and cut off various parts of my body.
The journalist was detained for 8 days and beaten several times.
Of course, it's hard to go over all those things again, but it's very important because if there's a verdict in court, it will be valid for the rest of their lives. Even if they finally fall into the hands of Ukrainian law enforcement in 10 years' time, the verdict will already be there.
Oleg recounted his ordeal in great detail in an interview to the Reckoning Project, an international initiative to document Russian war crimes.
I don't know how to describe it. Well, I really believed their threats. I knew they could do whatever they wanted with me. And I was in such hellish pain that I couldn't feel anything but that.
After his release, Oleg moved to western Ukraine and joined the Reckoning Project himself, interviewing other victims and witnesses.
The Reckoning Project collects testimonies that could be used in court. It's an attempt to combine a journalistic approach with a legal approach. So you really have to gather all the details that may at first seem unimportant.
The journalists record testimonies according to guidance from the project's lawyers.
This is a story I recorded recently and which really affected me. The mayor of a village called Kreshchenivka. He was kept under house arrest, and every day the Russians came and beat him.
One time he got a hot poker and started burning my legs with it.
With a hot poker?
Yes. You know, I feel like a wristwatch that from the outside looks normal and intact, but inside the mechanism is all broken and it doesn't work. That's how I am now. I have a psychiatrist and I take pills, antidepressants or whatever you call them.
Viktor Kopitok was freed after 3 weeks, when his village's occupiers were replaced by a different unit. Reshchenivka was liberated in October 2022, but most of Kherson region remains under Russian occupation, where, according to numerous sources, the torture continues.
These kinds of detentions are still happening, for example, in the village of Honostiivka. And in Kakhovka, my hometown, they're still happening.
Oleg, of course, can't go there. But he regularly travels to the liberated northern part of Kherson region, where he says there are still many victims who've yet to be interviewed. On a recent trip, he caught up with Viktor Kopitok, who, despite everything, returned to work as mayor of Reshchenivka. The village, less than 15 kilometers from Russian positions, is off-limits to journalists. But Viktor often comes to this nearby town to pick up building materials.
We need to work now, rebuild now, and try to provide something positive in these dark times. Even when I'm feeling really bad, I try to be positive because that helps other people to be too.
It's not easy, though.
If I now tell people that everything's going to be okay, well, how do I know that?
Still, he appears to be popular.
You're the mayor of which village?
Kreshchenivka.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about you. Well done. Let me shake your hand. You're really making an effort for your residents. I've heard that from other people.
He reminds me of myself, because he really works hard and he makes an effort. Because when he's always working and on the move, that's his kind of personal remedy for his trauma.
Even this town is regularly shelled, though, and in the villages further south, it's worse. But Viktor says life must go on.
The risk of shelling is a risk, not a certainty. Someday it will end. We could wait for that, but then when will it happen? In a year, 2, maybe in a month? We need to rebuild now, and we'll see what happens.
He heads to a warehouse to pick up cement. Despite the war damage and ongoing danger, around 250 people still live in Reshchenivka, a third of the pre-war population. Victor returned to the very house where he was tortured.
In the occupied territories, they're still torturing people just the same, kidnapping them, taking their children away. So I just don't feel like I have any moral right to sink into self-pity and misery. No, this is no time for that.
Both he and Oleg Baturin fervently hope, though, that the time for justice will come.